The AC was the only thing breathing. 50 people frozen in a room that suddenly felt too small, too staged, too rehearsed. My father's fork hovered in midair. Ryan's fiancée stopped her champagne halfway to her lips. My mother's proud little tear dried instantly. And Ryan, my golden brother, my family son, looked at me the way a man looks at a shadow he didn't realize could move. All because I said one sentence. "Dad, you forgot one thing, didn't you?" And that was the moment the entire script burned. But don't worry, we'll come back to that explosion. First, I want you to understand why every eye in that room tightened at the same time. Why the air thinned. Why my voice, quiet as it was, carried more weight than 8 Florida rental properties combined. Because this story, it didn't start at the inheritance meeting. It started years earlier, in a place nobody in that room bothered to look. The meeting, the ending they weren't ready for. Ryan stood up like he'd been practicing the announcement for years. Tapped his glass like he was addressing shareholders, not family. Smiled so wide it touched his ears. Mom and Dad decided to leave all 8 rental properties to me. Tegan, sorry. You get nothing. The room erupted. Whistles. Backslaps. Someone actually shouted finally. Brooke nearly sparkled out of her dress with pride. It was a celebration, a coronation. And I was expected to clap for my own erasure. But I didn't clap. I didn't breathe differently. I simply watched my father fold into the lie he'd helped build around my brother. They thought the story was over. They had no idea the real story had already been written. By someone who was no longer alive. The woman who saw me long before any of them did. My grandmother, Margaret Whitaker. The quiet force behind every brick our family owned, was the only person who ever looked at me without comparing me to Ryan. She never praised me with labels like the smart one or the independent one. She hated categories. She said they were just cages with prettier paint. Instead, she'd study me with those sharp bay blue eyes and say, "You see things clearly, Tegan. That's rarer than money." Some weekends, she'd hand me the keys to a rental house and tell me to walk through it alone. Feel what ownership feels like. She'd whisper. She said it like she already knew where the future was going. I didn't. Not yet. The boy who became the center of a family orbit. If you'd met my family before all this, you'd think we were the postcard version of Florida success. South Tampa house. Christmas card smiles. A boat that only Ryan was allowed to scratch. Everything revolved around him. He was the chosen son long before he earned anything. Teachers said his name like it tasted sweet. Mom sacrificed my tutoring so he could get new cleats. Dad praised him for staying local and loyal. Meanwhile, I became the daughter who did her own thing. Which in our family was code for the one we don't have to invest in. I didn't grow bitter. Bitterness requires attention. And my family never gave me any. The escape that saved me. When I left for Atlanta at 22, I felt the first breath of my life without my brother's shadow stretching over it. A beat-up Civic. A condo full of plants no one else could forget to water. A job where the only comparisons were numbers on a spreadsheet. And slowly, without anyone noticing except the one person who mattered, I learned the language of real estate, the language of trusts, ownership transfers, and quiet moves that last forever. Moves people in Tampa never saw coming. Moves that would change everything. The weekend that set the trap, just the beginning of the real story. 5 years before the inheritance meeting. Before the clapping, the champagne, the celebration of my erasure. Grandma Margaret called me. No small talk. No explanations. Come home this weekend. Bring your eyes. When I pulled into her St. Pete driveway, she was already waiting on the porch. 2 folders. A pot of coffee so strong it could strip paint. And a look that told me she'd already made decisions no one else knew existed. She slid the first folder toward me. And that was the beginning. The beginning of the thing my father forgot. The thing that erased every grin in that inheritance meeting. The thing that split the room in half like lightning. The moment the room stopped breathing. We're back. 50 people. A celebration paused midair. And me, sitting there with 9 years of distance 5 years of secrets. And one very dead woman's final instructions. Dad, I repeated, you forgot one thing. And when I opened the folder on my lap, every single person who had clapped for my downfall regretted it instantly. I didn't flinch. Ryan leaned forward like he was about to deliver a punchline. You live in Atlanta, Tegan. You don't even like Florida. Why would you need houses here? His voice carried that same lazy confidence he'd worn since middle school, like the world should rearrange itself so he could stay comfortable. Mom nodded along before he even finished speaking. Dad exhaled loudly, the way he always did when he thought I was overreacting. I looked at the waiver again. 8 addresses. 8 properties. My grandmother's handwriting in my memory, steady and unapologetic. Paper beats promises. Her voice echoed, so clearly it felt like she was standing behind me. Ryan reached across the table, flipped the pen toward me, and pushed it close enough that it touched my wrist. Just sign it, T. Nobody's trying to screw you. The irony almost made me laugh out loud. Instead, I slid the pen right back to him, barely using 2 fingers. His jaw twitched. That was new. Ryan never lost composure. Ever. The air in the room thickened. Mom tried to smile, but it cracked halfway. You don't understand the responsibility, she whispered. Not pleaded, whispered. And that was the moment I realized they weren't just confident. They were terrified. Terrified the plan they'd rehearsed, this neat little takeover of Grandma's empire, was collapsing because I refused to be the quiet one. The unnecessary one. The daughter who didn't need anything. But none of them knew the truth yet. Not the truth in the county records. Not the truth in the trust. Not the truth burned into ash under the palms the night Grandma and I swore our secret into the Florida sky. They had no idea the houses they thought they were giving to Ryan weren't theirs to give, hadn't been for years. Dad leaned back slowly, like he was calculating how stubborn I might be, how far this would go. His eyes tightened. Authority mode. Father mode. The mode that always worked on everyone except the woman who taught me to read between the lines of deeds and signatures. You're being unreasonable, he said. We're not asking for much. But that was the thing. They weren't asking. They were assuming. I met Ryan's eyes directly, and for the first time in his life, he looked unsure. Just a flicker. But I saw it. You sure you want to keep pushing this? He said, voice lower now, an edge under the surface. Because you're making things complicated. Complicated. His favorite word when money went missing. When tenants complained. When Grandma started looking too closely. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not fear. Not anger. Just the understanding that the time had finally come, the moment Grandma had prepared me for, page by page, signature by signature. I leaned back in my chair, calm, the way she always told me to be. My fingers tapped the table once. I'm not signing, I repeated. And if you think I have nothing to claim, you're very wrong. Ryan blinked. Dad's hand stilled. Mom's breath caught. Everything stopped, just like it did the day Grandma slid that first folder across the table and told me to open my eyes. And in that dining room, with everyone holding their breath, I knew the script they'd written was about to burn exactly the way Grandma promised it would. I just hadn't decided yet whether I was going to tear it quietly, or set it on fire in front of all of them. Back off. Dylan's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Ryan froze like someone had finally unplugged him. His breath came in short, broken bursts. His fists opened and closed like they couldn't decide who they belonged to. The room tilted, not physically, but emotionally, everyone leaning toward the collapse, waiting for someone else to blink first. Dad was still on his knees, palms spread on the rug as if he could steady the entire house with his hands. Mom's mascara streaks ran down to her jawline, black rivers cutting through years of denial. You can't do this, Ryan whispered, not shouting now, not smug, not smirking, just stripped. You can't take everything from me. A tremor ran through his voice, the kind that comes when someone finally realizes the ground under them isn't ground at all. It's a trapdoor, and the lever was pulled long before they arrived. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The papers did the talking. He looked around the room. Cousins who once praised him now refusing eye contact. Aunts suddenly fascinated by their own drinks. Friends pretending they hadn't been bragging about his future landlord empire 20 minutes ago. Even the property manager backed toward the wall, hands tucked behind him like he was trying to physically retreat from his own congratulations. Say something. Ryan shouted at everyone. Somebody's say something. But the only sound was the ice softening in champagne flutes and a shrimp tray clattering in the kitchen because a caterer's hands were shaking. I picked up the trust again. The weight familiar now. The pages whispered when they moved. Paper on paper. Truth on truth. You built your life on money that wasn't yours, I said quietly. Grandma knew that. She wasn't confused. She wasn't tricked. She wasn't weak. Ryan shook his head violently. Shut up. She was done watching you drain her. So she stopped you the only way she knew how. Shut up. The scream ripped out of him like something breaking deep. A vase toppled. Someone gasped. A little cousin, maybe 8, hid behind her mother's legs. Mom stood, voice trembling. Ryan, please. But he wasn't hearing anybody. His face went blotchy, red and white and furious all at once. He looked at me like I'd taken a limb from him, not a portfolio he was never meant to have. You think you're the hero? He hissed, stepping around Dylan but not toward me anymore, toward the table. You think she loved you more? He grabbed one deed, then another, crumpling them in shaking hands like destroying paper could undo signatures filed years ago in county offices. Stop. Mom lunged forward. Mr. Hargrove grabbed Ryan's wrist with surprising speed. These are copies, he said coldly. The originals are already in the county archives. Destroy whatever you want. It changes nothing. Ryan's hand went limp. The crushed deeds fell to the floor like wrung-out confessions. For a moment, he just stood there, breathing hard, eyes glassy, chest heaving. Not angry, not defeated. Something worse. Lost. I had plans, he whispered. We had plans. His eyes darted toward the door Brooke had disappeared through. His voice cracked clean in half. Dylan stepped aside and Ryan sank into a chair, elbows on his knees, hands covering his face. His shoulders shook once. Twice. A third time. Not preparation for another explosion. Just grief for a future built on a lie. Dad finally pushed himself to his feet, wiping his face with the back of his hand. His voice barely worked. Tegan, what do we do now? I met his eyes. The same eyes that once told me bedtime stories. The same eyes that looked away when Ryan started stealing. You stop pretending Grandma didn't make her choice, I said. You stop rewriting her. And you stop expecting me to fix the mess you made by ignoring her. Mom sobbed once, loud, raw, the way someone cries when they realize the truth was always right in front of them and they never bothered to look. One of the aunts whispered under her breath, Lord have mercy. The attorney cleared his throat, the only person still steady on his feet. Legally, he said, this entire event is unnecessary. There is nothing to dispute. The properties passed 2 years ago. There is no new paperwork to sign. No waivers. No distributions. It is done. But the legal ending wasn't the real ending. Not here. Not with these people. I reached down, picking up the crushed copies of the deeds. Straightened them. Slipped them back into the red folder. Not to be neat. Not to be polite. To show control. To show calm. To show I wasn't moving backward for anyone. Ryan lifted his head, eyes red, voice hoarse. What happens to me now? The house felt like it was holding its breath. I zipped the suitcase. The click sounded like a lock sealing. That's not my decision, I said. And I turned toward the doorway again. The same doorway Grandma walked through the day she made her plans airtight and unshakable. Behind me, someone whispered what everyone was thinking. Paper beats promises. I didn't look back. Not once. He said it low and firm. Ryan stopped breathing hard. Fists still clenched, but useless now. Someone's glass slipped and cracked on the tile. Nobody reacted. Phones hovered midair, recording and deleting in the same shaky hands. The aunts stared at their shoes like the floor had suddenly become holy. The property managers ghosted out the side door, pretending they were never invited. The caterers froze in the kitchen doorway, caught between refilling champagne or running for their cars. Dad stayed on his knees. His voice broke on every word. "We'll sell the boats, take second mortgages, whatever it takes, we'll fix this." Mom reached for me and grabbed nothing but air. "We're so sorry, please don't hate us." I looked at both of them. At Ryan, shaking like rage, was the only thing keeping him upright. At Dylan, solid beside me, finally choosing a side that wasn't dictated by childhood pecking orders. "I don't hate you," I said, "but I'm done fixing things for people who never saw me as part of the solution." The suitcase clicked shut, a sound so small, yet Dad flinched like it was a gunshot. Mr. Hargrove cleared his throat, tired of emotions and ready for paperwork. "I'll notify all tenants and financial institutions on Monday. Ownership transfer is complete. Everything else is administrative." Ryan made a sound no grown man should ever make. Mom buried her face in a throw pillow, scream muted. Dad just stared at the carpet like it was going to give him answers. I picked up my keys. The house watched me leave. 3 months later, the dust settled in all the wrong places. His name vanished from every lease, every account, every contractor database. Tenants got new payment instructions with my name printed clean at the top. Most didn't even blink. Rent stayed normal. Repairs actually got done. Nobody charged them for fake roof evaluations anymore. The IRS letter came next. Turns out those Florida inspections were actually vacations in Miami. Those maintenance trucks were just his new toys. They froze the last of his accounts. 6-figure penalty. He fought. He lost. He'll be paying it off until his late 40s. Mom and Dad listed the big house in 30 days. The boats went first. Then the jet skis. Then Mom's jewelry box, piece by piece. They moved into a 2-bedroom condo that looked directly at a parking lot. Dad took early retirement after his heart started skipping beats. Mom picked up shifts at a boutique so they could afford groceries. Holiday gatherings ended in silence rather than invitations. The ring Brooke returned arrived in a padded envelope. No note. Just cold metal and colder intentions. Ryan moved into a studio apartment with peeling paint and a window-facing brick. He sells cars on Dale, Mabry now. Sometimes he drives past the rentals. Slows down. Sees my management sign in the yard. Speeds off like the street is on fire. Dylan texts every couple weeks. 2 sentences at most. Just checking in. He's the only one I reply to. He says the family talks about me like I'm gone. Like I died with Grandma. I told him that works for me. Atlanta felt like starting over without the grief. The rental income covered my mortgage and my peace. I hired a management company run by women who answer emails before lunch. Vacancies disappeared. Repairs got done without excuses. The numbers hit my account every month. Quiet. Clean. Mine. 2 new properties closed last quarter. Small deals. But no one can rewrite ownership this time. No letters from the family. No emails. No random knocks. Not even a pity text. Just silence. Blessed. Permanent silence. Mom left one last voicemail 2 months ago, crying, asking me to come for Christmas. I deleted it before she finished the sentence. Then blocked the number. Some nights, I sit on my 12th floor balcony, city lights flickering like they're coding a new life for me. I think about that little girl, the one who begged Dad to check her math homework, while Ryan got new cleats and applause for showing up. The world rewards the loudest voice, until someone arrives with proof instead. Blood isn't loyalty. It never was. The only person who ever protected me was an old woman who understood paperwork better than promises. The fireproof folder sits on the top shelf of my closet. Every deed, every stamp, every page she entrusted to me. I don't open it anymore. I don't need to. The houses speak for her. The silence speaks for me. Some doors, once you close them, stay closed for good. And if you've ever had to choose between the family you were born into and the peace you built with your own 2 hands, drop a comment below. Where are you watching from tonight? Because sometimes the hardest thing isn't walking away. It's refusing to walk back. Champagne already in his hand, like he'd been rehearsing this moment in the mirror. He didn't tap the glass, he didn't need to. The room settled around him the way crowds settle around the person they've already decided is the winner. He cleared his throat, did that little half smile he uses when he wants to look humble and important at the same time. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate Grandma Margaret's legacy," he said, giving Brooke's fingers a squeeze. "It means everything to step into this next chapter and carry on what she built. Her legacy. What she built. Words he'd practiced. Words he thought belonged to him." He raised his glass higher. "And thank you all for trusting me to take the lead. Big things are coming." Cameras lifted. Phones hovered. Ants leaned in with the glow of people who crave proximity to success. Dad stood behind him, beaming. Mom dabbed her eyes again. The tax map on the easel practically shined under the living room lights. That was when I knelt beside the suitcase. Just something small. One click of the zipper. And the room's attention shifted the way a forest goes silent before a storm. Ryan paused mid-sentence. Tegan." His smile twitched. I didn't answer. I pulled out the first folder. The red one. The one Grandma and I had initialed on her porch while the ceiling fan ticked overhead and the sun slid down behind the palms. I placed it on the coffee table. Soft. Deliberate. Loud enough in meaning to quiet 30 people. Dad sighed the way men sigh when they think they're about to scold you back into line. "Sweetheart, this isn't the time." "It's exactly the time," I said. A few cousins shifted. Someone whispered. Brooke stepped closer to Ryan, touching his elbow like she was studying him on a cliff's edge. I opened the folder. The deeds, crisp and current, caught the light like thin, gleaming knives. Ryan laughed. Too loud, too sharp. "What are you doing?" "Showing old paperwork." "Cute. Really cute." But Mr. Hargrove, the attorney, took one step forward. Just one. And that was all it took for the air to split open. "These," I said quietly, "are the recorded titles. All 8. Filed. Stamped. 2 years ago." The room didn't breathe. Ryan blinked at the pages like they'd turned into another language. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad's jaw flexed the way it did when he realized something was already past saving. Brooke took a step back. "You're lying," Ryan said, voice cracking clean through the bravado. "Grandma would never, she'd never choose you over me." I slid the second folder out. Blue. The trust. His eyes followed it like a drowning man follows a rope that's not meant for him. "Grandma chose stability," I said. "She chose tenants who wouldn't be evicted because someone wanted a boat payment covered. She chose someone who actually saw her. Someone who didn't bleed her dry." Mom whispered my name like a prayer, like a warning. "Tegan, please not here. People are watching." "I know," I said. Every word felt like stepping exactly where Grandma told me to step. Ryan grabbed the nearest brochure, his brochure, the glossy one with a new era in gold script. He slapped it onto the table beside the deeds like a gambler doubling down. "This is fake. All of it. Dad, tell her. Tell her she can't just show up and claim everything." Dad didn't move. His silence burned hotter than his anger ever had. Someone in the back whispered, "Is that the notary's seal?" Someone else. "Those are county stamps." The tenants stood frozen, their faces slowly changing. Recognition, realization, relief. I reached into the suitcase one last time. The flash drive. Small. Silver. Heavy with all the proof they never thought I had. I set it on top of the trust. "Grandma planned everything," I said softly. "She knew exactly what you'd try to do. She knew how you'd rewrite the story. She knew you'd make yourself the victim if she didn't put it all in writing." Ryan shook his head over and over, like he could shake the reality off his skin. "That's not fair," he rasped. "She didn't even tell me." "She didn't trust you," I said. "That's the part you keep forgetting." Brooke swallowed hard. Her hand slipped from his arm. Dad finally spoke, voice gravel low. "Is this why you refused to sign the waiver?" "Yes." Mom sank into a chair, eyes glazing with a kind of disappointment that isn't even directed at me. It's directed at the truth itself, now too loud to hide. Ryan lunged forward, grabbing the red folder. I didn't flinch. He flipped through the pages with frantic, jerking movements until he hit the last sheet. The one with Grandma's bold signature, steady as stone. The moment he saw it, really saw it, his knees didn't buckle, but his certainty did. I watched it leave him. He slammed the folder shut. This isn't over. It is, I said. It was over the moment she signed. The room watched him fall apart without making a sound. Outside, the caterers kept refilling trays no one would touch. The oak tree kept swaying. The celebration banner fluttered like a joke the universe couldn't hold in. I picked up my suitcase handle. The weight felt lighter now. You wanted a future, I told him. This just isn't yours. And I walked toward the door, leaving them in the wreckage of the story they tried to write without me, without her, without the truth. Behind me, someone whispered. She warned us. Paper beats promises. And for the first time since she died, I felt her there. Quiet.
Proud.
Unshakable.